Alright guys, welcome to the second game of a first book of Morphy. In today's game, I'm going to go ahead and cover Paul Morphy versus Lewis. This was again at a blindfold simultaneous exhibition in Philadelphia in 1859. Let's go ahead and get started with e4. Alright, so Paul Morphy goes with e4. Let's see, Lewis plays b6, and here's some notes. It says, Black intends to develop with a threat on move 2, but immediately takes on a disadvantage in the center. Okay, so Paul Morphy takes the center with d4. Bishop d7, or bishop b7, bishop d3. So here it says if white have played knight c3, it blocks the c pawn, which might be useful for controlling the center. Bishop d3 aims for the fastest kingside castling because white already has the best center. Okay. So he aims towards better development and king safety. This move also sets a trap. Okay. So e6. And again, the trap is f5. E captures f5. Bishop captures g2. Queen h5 check, g6, f captures g6, knight f6, g captures h7, check, discovered check, knight captures h5, bishop g6 mate. And again, so that is a trap. So e6, knight h3. Again, this looks like a beginner's move. But it's quite in tune with the recipe. White has better center control, and if he develops a new piece with each move, black cannot catch up. This move prepares for castling, better king safety, and since it does not block the f-pawn, white can improve his center and open a file later. So it's greater center control because the bishop is already here, and it's also blocked in here by the pawns. It cannot take the knight, right? So here, white wants to castle, launch f4, and then f5, and then possibly takes, open a file up for the rook. Or if this pawn disappears, then the rook has the open file here on the f file. Okay, so let's continue. d5, e5. The d pawn controls equal space, but the e5 pawn is a yard better than black's e6 pawn because it restricts black's knight development. Black sticks further behind in time. Okay, so, and again, this is what I'm talking about, right? So because of this, black had 1, 2, 3 moves to castle, right? And now his king is safe, and now that's going to turn into 4, right? So as a player, you should be able to pay attention to these things. Right, so now it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to take 4 moves for black to get his king to safety. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue. Knight e7. And again, it has some notes on knight h6. If black was thinking if he plays this move, his risks to capture the bishop is going to take. So he decided with knight e7. So now we go castles. Morphy had a habit of completing his development on one side of the board before starting on the other, which often resulted in easier coordination of those pieces. Okay, so castle first and then see where you want to place your pieces. Knight g6. Okay, black is continuing the plan we talked about. And again, now black makes room for the bishop. But the knight comes under fire under c6. Okay. And then black was suggesting an alternative, maybe knight c6, right? Or before playing knight c6, again, because it blocks the pawn on c7, black could have played c5. Right, and then go knight c6, and then put the other knight on d7. Okay, so Castles, knight g6, f4. Bishop e7, f5. With better center control, with better development, and better king safety, white guarantees the opening of the file for his f1 rook. Okay. E captures f5. Black's position shows its first crack, while white attacks 36. White attacks in 36 in case of, again, these are the notes. Okay, so some variations. Queen g4. Now if knight goes back, then queen g4. So we have e captures f5. Bishop captures f5. White could continue with e6 to disrupt black's position, but black ought to roll with that punch with developing moves. Okay, so we can continue. Bishop c8. After this loss of time, white attacks flows smoothly. A surprising turn of events could follow. So he's wasting time with the bishop, right? So an alternative that a suggestion here is knight d7, e6, f captures e6, bishop captures g6 checks, h captures g6, queen g4, knight f8, knight f4, forking black's pawns. Queen d6 pins the knight to the, again, if the knight moves, it's checkmate on h2, preparing to castle. So that's an alternative. But again, black plays bishop c8. White captures, queen captures c8. Black lost 3 moves as a result of this exchange. He developed, then undeveloped his bishop, while the queen's recapture did not develop and even enables white to bring up another piece with threat. So the queen recaptured, but is still in the back rank. Knight c3, attacking the pawn. c6. Again, if queen d7, queen f3. If queen e6, queen f3. So c3, bishop g5, castles. Another mistake, if queen e6, bishop captures, queen captures. Black would have to would not have to underdevelop the knight. Okay, so he's saying that by castling, right, now if we take, knight takes, now the knight moves backward, which is bad for black. If again, if black had played queen e6, right, then we see it here, queen e6. Now if we take, black takes with the queen, this is a better position for black because the knight still is here, and now the queen is developed to the 7th rank. So let's continue. Bishop takes, knight takes, queen h5. White brings up more force. Knight g5 could be next with a double threat. So h6. White has a winning position. So if g6, queen h6, f6 stops knight g5 but allows e captures f6. Okay. So now white plays rook f3 and turn the queen and the king rook made way for the queen rook to enter. Additionally, white puts rook g3 in store, which threatens queen captures h6. So after rook g3, then white can take. Knight g6. Black avoids a pin on the g file, but his only developed piece has moved 4 times. Right. So this is the thing we're talking about. Time wasted. So now in this position, if the queen were here, right? Let's go back one move, right? If the knight were already here and the queen were here, then black could have played something else, right? Or black wouldn't even have gone, white couldn't have gone queen g5 because the queen would have taken, right? So rook a to f1, queen e6, knight e2. Each white piece has taken its first step forward. The knight's second step brings it closer to the king side. Knight d7. The e5 pawn restrains this knight further movement. Okay. And after white plays knight e4, this knight cooperates with e5 pawn to attack the range of squares between d6 and g6. Okay. So knight e4, the fork compels black to exchange his defensive piece, while white's recapture brings reinforcements forward. right? So it's, again, we're talking about these little things, right? Black takes, but now white brings the other knight in. The knight goes forward and is in the game. Okay, so here we have an alternative. Maybe it's a little better. Instead of black taking, allow white to take. Queen e8. So knight takes. F captures g6. Rook captures f8. Knight captures f8. Black holds for a bit. So it gives black a little bit more time to bring the other rook in to defend. But again, black takes first and white recaptures. Queen e7. Rook g3. King h7. Rook f to f3. White's pieces inch forward one by one, and now white threatens so let's see. Rook g8 leaves f7 exposed to the attack, is now guarded once. So again, if f a6, then rook g7, this is a threat. Check. And now threatening mate. Okay. So rook g8. White plays knight h3 for a double attack on the pawn on f7. g6. Black could have played f6 to watch over f5, but then white goes to work on the newly open file. Right, so let's go over f6. If black plays f6, so e captures f6. Knight captures f6. Knight g5 check. King h8. Knight s7 check. King h7. Queen captures queen captures f7, or queen g6 mate. There you go. These are some variations here from the notes. So knight g5 check, queen captures g5, rook captures f7 check, king h8, queen captures g5, and h captures g5, and rook h3 checkmate. And black gets checkmated. I think black resigned a couple moves before. Again, this is a kind of a different way to do it. The previous video was going off the book, reading off the book. This one is from a lead chess study that's available on lead chess, the first book of Morphy. So I'm kind of going over it on the lead chess study. If you have any preference, if you like the first video first, me reading from the book, let me know. If you like the second one better, let me know. And I'll see you guys in the next video.